AITA for exposing my family after they faked mom's illness to scam $15,000 from me? My name is Nicole, I am 33 years old, and I work in accounting at a mid-sized company in a corporate park. I am not a millionaire, but I do well enough to rent a one-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood, pay my bills without falling behind, and have real savings, the kind that don't go toward impulsive purchases. My life is organized. I like everything to balance out. I pay on time, I meal prep for the week on Sundays, and I have a budget spreadsheet that I review every Friday. My friends say I am boring. I do not care. I prefer being boring over living with my stomach in knots because of debt. My family is the exact opposite. My parents, Teresa and Anthony, are in their 50s and have a special talent for ignoring any plan. My mom worked part-time at a department store until last year, when one day she decided she just couldn't take it anymore and deserved to rest. My dad picks up construction jobs whenever it suits him, which lately is almost never. They live paycheck to paycheck when there is a paycheck. And then there is my younger sister, Chloe. She is 28. She works at a coffee shop, but only when she is not focused on her art. She paints abstract things that look like they were finger-painted in elementary school, but she presents herself as an artist. She has been living for over a year in a tiny old studio apartment in a rundown neighborhood. Even so, she thought it was perfect because she said it gave her inspiration. And guess who has been paying that rent? Yes, me. First, it was an emergency. 3 years ago, my parents called me crying because they did not have enough to cover a mortgage payment. Just this once, they told me, "It is really urgent." I sent them $1,100. Then it happened again the next month and the next. Without realizing it, it became the norm. I ended up setting up an automatic transfer of $1,500 to them every month because honestly it was easier than dealing with the drama. It was the same with Chloe. Last year she called me crying, saying she was going to be evicted from her apartment. "Just help me this one time, please," she begged. Her rent was $850 a month, more than she earned most of the time. I thought that if I paid that for her, at least she would have a stable roof over her head and maybe with some peace of mind she could get herself sorted out. I had no problem helping, or so I kept telling myself. So when my mom called me on a Tuesday to invite me to dinner on Friday, I said yes. We try to have a family dinner at least once a month, although it almost always ends the same way. Me eating whatever my mom made while they complain about their problems as if the world owed them something. On Friday, I arrived at 6 o'clock sharp as always. My parents' house is in an older part of the city, on one of those streets where everything looks a bit tired. They have let it deteriorate because fixing it is expensive. The front gate squeaks, the paint is peeling, and the porch has been sagging for years, as if it were on the verge of giving up. I walked in and saw Chloe on the couch, glued to a guy I had never seen before. Tall, skinny, with about 2 days' worth of stubble. Chloe was laughing as if he were telling her the funniest story in the world. "Nicole," she said, jumping up to hug me. "I have to introduce you to someone very special. This is Ethan, my fiancé." I stood there blinking. "You're what?" "We got engaged," she said and showed me her left hand with a tiny ring, featuring a little stone that sparkled more out of illusion than anything else. "When did this happen?" I asked, trying to make my voice sound normal. "Just recently," Chloe said, squeezing closer to him. Ethan stood up and shook my hand. "Nice to meet you. Chloe talks about you a lot. You are the successful sister." It was not what he said. It was how he said it, as if that word came with a price tag. I smiled politely. "Congratulations." We sat down to dinner. My mom brought out the usual. Dry-baked chicken, slightly clumpy rice, and a salad that seemed more like water than anything else. My dad asked Ethan what he did for a living. "I am between jobs," Ethan replied, as if it were a very interesting temporary phase. "But I have some big things in the works." Chloe looked at him as if he had discovered fire. We were halfway through dinner when Chloe put down her fork and made that face that said the important part was coming. "Well, I have something to ask you all." I settled into my chair internally. Here we go again, I thought. Another crisis, another favor, another just this once. "Ethan's parents invited us to go spend a week with them in Maui," Chloe said, her eyes lighting up. "They say they want to get to know me better, that it would be perfect for bonding before the wedding." I nodded slowly. "Sounds nice." Chloe took a deep breath. The thing is, the trip comes out to about $14,000 for the four of us. When she said, the four of us, she looked directly at me. My parents did too. So did Ethan. I calmly put down my fork. I am not going to pay for that trip, I said. Chloe pouted. Nicole, please do it for me. I looked at her as if I were explaining something obvious. You can bond with your future in-laws without spending that amount. They can come over for dinner, go to a park, take a walk, do something normal. Bonding cannot be bought. Chloe's face turned bitter. Ethan leaned forward with an expression of annoyance that he didn't bother to hide. Excuse me, but that sounds rude, he said. Chloe and your parents told me that you always help them out, that you are the one who bails the family out when necessary. This is important for our relationship. And right then I understood. The idea was not just Chloe's. Ethan spoke about the trip as if it were already decided, as if the only thing missing was for me to pay. My stomach tightened. In other words, they had already discussed this with this guy, a stranger. They told him how I sent them money, as if I were an ATM that turns on every month. I stared at Ethan and felt a very ugly clarity. He was just like them. Another one who came with his hand out, only with a smile. I am not going to throw money away on a vacation, I said, keeping my tone in check. But when you are planning the actual wedding, then I can help you with something that matters. Chloe opened her mouth as if to argue. I raised my hand, cutting her off. This topic is over. The rest of the dinner was pure ice. Chloe gave me nasty looks every time I turned around. Ethan did not even speak to me. My parents exchanged little glances as if they were evaluating how disappointing I had become. I no longer cared. I ate, helped clear the table out of habit, and left. Several weeks passed after that dinner, and my phone stayed quiet. No mom asking how I was, no Chloe sending me silly memes, no dad asking me to come over and help him with something. My family is dramatic, yes, but they had never given me the silent treatment like this. Even when we fight, a few days later someone tries to patch things up. This felt different. One Thursday afternoon I did something I almost never do. I showed up unannounced with a peace offering. Near my office there is a good bakery, one of those where the prices hurt a little bit, but they make you look good. I bought an apple cinnamon pie, my mom's favorite. It cost me about $45, but it was the kind of dessert that makes people remember it is not worth being in a fight. I told my boss I had a family matter and needed to leave early. It was not a lie. I left early to avoid getting stuck in the afternoon traffic. Even so, I endured the usual slow crawl, the stoplights, the buses, the city squeezing in. I drove to my parents' house with the pie in my hand, mentally rehearsing an apology. Not because I felt I was wrong, but because I was getting tired of the atmosphere. I still had a house key from my college days. They never asked for it back, and I never thought I would one day need to explain it. I walked in carefully and heard voices in the kitchen. Loud voices, the kind that are not casual conversation. I stopped before saying, I am here, because they had not heard me come in. Then I heard Chloe clearly. I really want to go to Maui with Ethan and his parents, but I do not have the money. Nicole is being really stingy about this. I froze. My mom's voice came out next, calm, as if she were talking about what to buy at the supermarket. Do not worry, your dad and I have already figured out how to get the money out of her. I felt my throat tighten. I am going to say my arthritis got worse and that I need a special treatment. You know how Nicole is. If you talk to her about doctors, she gets scared and pays up. And they laughed. They laughed as if it were a great joke. How much are you going to ask her for? Chloe asked anxiously. $15,000, my mom said. That covers the trip and leaves us enough to catch up on things around the house. Awesome, my dad said, joining the conversation. Nicole has always been so naive about those things. She believes everything. I really waited for my mom to stop him, to say something like, do not say that, to defend me just a little. My mom laughed harder. You know what the truth is, she said, as if she were confessing a funny secret. When Nicole pitches in, she is a good daughter. When she doesn't, she just annoys us with her lists, her scolding, and her way of wanting to control everything. I felt like throwing up. The pie felt as heavy as if I were carrying rocks. I moved toward the door without making a sound. I stepped out and carefully closed it. I took a deep breath, as if the air would help me process what I had just heard. Then I did something that surprised even me. I knocked on the door as if I had just arrived. "Coming!" my mom yelled with a cheerful voice that disgusted me because of how fake it was. She opened the door and her face lit up. "Nicole, what a beautiful surprise. Come in, come in." I walked back into that same house holding the same pie, looking at the same woman who had just said I was only worth something when I pitched in. "Look who is here," my mom sang toward the kitchen. My dad and Chloe came out with huge smiles, the kind that feel taped on. "Nikki," Chloe said, running to hug me as if weeks had not passed without her speaking to me. "I brought a pie," I said, lifting the box. "You are so sweet," my dad said, patting me on the shoulder. "Sit down, let's have some coffee." We sat at the kitchen table, in the exact same spot where a minute ago they were planning to scam me. My mom poured coffee, cut the pie, and talked nonstop about how pretty it looked, how thoughtful I was, how much they had missed me. I watched them with new eyes. Chloe's smile did not reach her eyes. My dad kept glancing at my mom as if they were sharing an inside joke. And my mom's voice was a little higher pitched than normal when she faked excitement. It made me angry to think that maybe it had always been like this and I just did not want to see it. My mom sat down with her plate and suddenly grimaced. "Oh, this arthritis is really getting to me," she said, grabbing her wrist and then her lower back. "It has been hitting me harder lately." I took a sip of coffee. "Oh, really?" "Yes," my mom continued, watching me out of the corner of her eye to gauge my reaction. "In the mornings my hands wake up stiff. It is hard for me to even hold a mug, and I am not even sleeping well anymore. It is a constant pain." She flexed her fingers as if she were demonstrating a tragedy. Chloe made a worried sound. My dad sighed as if he were carrying the weight of the world. "That is tough," I said without changing my expression. My mom shifted in her chair, playing up the drama. "I am thinking I will have to go to a specialist because my basic health plan has me running around in circles, and if I want to start quickly I would have to go private. You know how everything is." I nodded, looked at my watch, and put on a serious face. "Wow, I just remembered I have to head back right now. A problem came up at work." My mom blinked, confused. "What? But you just got here." "Yeah, sorry," I said, standing up. "Thanks for the coffee. We will talk later." I kissed my mom on the cheek, hugged Chloe and my dad, and left. As I walked to the car, I managed to see them through the window. They just stood there as if they could not understand why their performance had not worked. I drove to my apartment on autopilot. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I arrived, double-locked the door, sat on the couch, and finally allowed myself to get truly angry. $2,350 a month. That was what I had been sending them for years between one thing and another. $1,500 to my parents, $850 for Chloe's rent. It was madness. Annually, it was a brutal amount. And they laughed. They called me naive. They said I was only a good daughter when I pitched in. My anger did not stay as just anger. It turned into something colder, clearer. "You want to play?" I thought. Fine. I know how to play too. The next few days I acted as if nothing had happened. When my mom texted me asking how I was, I replied normally. When she started bringing up the arthritis in her messages, I would reply with, "That is too bad." And, "I hope you feel better soon." But I offered no money. Nothing. My mom gradually escalated the tone. First it was general complaints, then symptoms, then supposed doctor visits. One night she wrote to me, "The doctor says it is getting complicated and if I do not start treatment now, I could get worse." I replied, "That is a bummer. I hope you find a good treatment soon." Minutes later, "The thing is, it is super expensive and the insurance does not cover everything." Me, "How frustrating, really? Well, I hope it works out." I could feel the confusion on the other end because normally by that point, I would have already been asking how much they needed and when I should transfer it. Instead, I played dumb. This went on for 3 weeks. My mom became more obvious. She sent me articles about treatments, told me about a specialized clinic, and invented stories about a friend who got much better until one Wednesday night she called me. I was on the couch eating a quick dinner and watching a show when the phone rang. "Nicole, my love," my mom said in a serious voice. "We have to talk. Can you come to dinner this weekend? There is something important we need to discuss about my health." I smiled to myself. There it was. The moment they had been setting up since I heard their plan. On Saturday, I arrived right on time. Chloe and Ethan were already there, sitting on the couch with rehearsed expressions of concern. My mom walked very slowly, as if every step were a feat. My dad offered her help with everything. "Nicole," Chloe said, getting up to hug me. "I am so glad you came. We are really worried about Mom." "She has been in pain all the time," Ethan added. This seemed ridiculous to me because he barely knew my mom, but he was already completely into the act. We sat down to dinner, and the show began. My dad suddenly became affectionate. "Sweetheart, the truth is we are really proud of you," he said, as if he had not ignored me for weeks. "You have always been the smart one, the responsible one." Chloe quickly chimed in. "Really, you are the best sister in the world. I do not know what we would do without you." My mom smiled at me every 2 minutes. "I love you so much, sweetie." Ethan jumped in too. "Chloe has told me you are very generous. It is inspiring." I ate in silence, waiting for the blow. It finally came. When my mom cleared the dessert plates, she came back to sit down with a perfectly calculated look of pain. "I did not want to bring this up at such a lovely dinner," she said, "but we have to talk about my health." Everyone went quiet, looking at her with soap opera eyes. "They ran more tests on me," my mom continued, "and the doctor says I have to start treatment now. He recommended a rehabilitation clinic for severe cases like mine." She took a long pause, almost crying. "The problem is the cost. Comes to $15,000. The insurance will not sort it out for me quickly, and if I do not do it soon, the doctor says it could get much worse." Chloe covered her mouth with her hand. "Mom, no." Then she looked at me as if she were truly suffering. "I wish I could help, but with what I make at the coffee shop, I cannot," she said, looking around at everyone as if waiting for the world to understand how unfair her life was. Ethan shook his head. "I would help, but I do not have a steady job right now." My dad sighed, looking down at his plate as if he were carrying an immense sorrow. "We have been trying to figure out what to do, honey, but we do not have that amount." And then all 4 of them turned to look at me at the same time. There it was. The spotlight. The moment for which they had given me the silent treatment for weeks. I looked at them. My mom with her fake worried face. My dad with his united family vibe. Chloe biting her lip as if she were on the verge of tears. Ethan sitting there as if he were also a part of my history. And I could not help it. I laughed. Not a little giggle, a full belly laugh that doubled me over. That brought tears to my eyes, that left me breathless. They stared at me as if I had gone crazy. "Nicole," Chloe said hesitantly. "What is so funny?" "This is serious," my dad murmured. I wiped my eyes, took a breath and looked at them calmly. "The show is over." The silence dropped like a stone. My mom let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, sweetie, I don't know what you are talking about." "Of course you do," I said. "I heard you 3 weeks ago when I came over with the pie. I heard you say you were going to fake the arthritis thing to get $15,000 out of me, that it was for Chloe's trip to Maui, and that you were going to ask for that amount and keep the extra." Chloe turned pale. Ethan's mouth fell open. My dad lowered his gaze as if he wanted to disappear. I kept going because there was no turning back now. "I also heard you say that I am naive, that I believe everything, that when I pitch in, I am a good daughter, and the rest of the time I am just a nuisance to you." The color completely drained from my mom's face. "Nicole, I can explain." "No," I said, standing up. "No need." I looked at them one last time with a calmness that surprised me. "That is it. It is over." Chloe stood up too, desperate. "Nicole, you can't." "Yes, I can," I replied. I turned and headed toward the door. "The monthly transfers are over. Paying your rent is over. The family dinners where I only show up to be the ATM are over. But we are your family," Chloe shrieked. Her voice was no longer sweet. It was pure rage. "You should have thought about that earlier," I said without raising my voice. "I am canceling your rent payments today." My mom started to cry or fake cry, I did not even know anymore. My dad stood up with his hands open, as if trying to fix it with words. "Nicole, wait, do not leave like this." I opened the door. I already left years ago, only today I finally realized it. I walked out and did not listen to the rest. That night I got to my apartment and sat down in front of the computer. I opened my banking app. I canceled the automatic transfer to my parents. I canceled the rent transfer for Chloe. It took me less than 10 minutes to undo 3 years of supporting 3 adults. And even though it sounds awful, it felt incredible. I was not even finished when my phone started ringing. My mom, my dad, Chloe. Over and over and over again. I did not answer any of them. Then the messages started coming. Complaints, guilt trips, pleading. Chloe wrote me a massive text saying I was cruel and selfish. My dad sent a short one calling me ungrateful. My mom sent an endless message saying I had misunderstood everything. I deleted them without finishing them. At around 10 p.m., a call came in from an unsaved number. I answered out of habit. Nicole. Chloe yelled from the other side. I am calling from Ethan's phone. You have to listen to me. No, I said. I don't. You are selfish, she shrieked. You cannot just abandon us like this. Yes, I can, I replied and hung up. I blocked that number. Then I blocked my mom, my dad, and Chloe. If they wanted to tell me something, they could send a letter. The following week was quiet, too quiet. I got up, went to work, came back, ate dinner, watched shows, and for the first time in years I did not have that feeling of waiting for the next emergency. Until they showed up at my building. It was a Tuesday around 7 p.m. when I heard loud banging on the door. They were not normal knocks, it was like they were trying to knock it down. Nicole! Chloe yelled from the hallway. We know you are in there, open up. I peeked through the peephole. All 3 of them were there. My mom with a hard face, my dad red with anger, Chloe with furious eyes. We need to talk, my dad yelled. Please, my mom said. But it did not sound like a plea, it sounded like a demand. I stayed still. They banged and yelled for several minutes. The neighbors were surely hearing everything by now. I could hear footsteps in the hall. I stepped close to the door and spoke loudly without yelling. If you do not leave right now, I am going to call building security to escort you out, and if that does not work, I will call the police. Chloe let out a laugh. You would not dare. I took out my cell phone, dialed 911, and held the phone close to the door so they could hear the operator's voice. The banging stopped abruptly. I heard them arguing quietly and angrily, and then they left. After that, they left me alone. Months passed. At first, I expected them to come back or look for another way to contact me, but they did not. Maybe out of pride, maybe because they finally understood that I was not going to give in. I found out things through my cousin Danielle, who still talked to them from time to time. Your parents are struggling, she told me over the phone one day. They both had to start working full-time. My dad started taking on more construction work consistently. My mom got a job at a grocery store. They were tired, but they were getting by. Chloe went to live with Ethan at first, but that did not last either. They spend all their time fighting, Danielle told me. Ethan is upset because Chloe barely contributes. What she makes at the coffee shop is barely enough for herself. I felt a little bit of guilt. I admit it, just a tiny bit, but it passed quickly. Chloe was 28. It was about time. Do they talk about me? I asked. Danielle hesitated. Yes. Your mom says she misses you, but mostly they are angry. They say you abandoned them. I let out a short laugh. How curious. The truth was I did not miss them. I thought it would hurt on birthdays, on special days, on those dates when you feel more sensitive. But when my birthday came around in November, it felt light, even nice. I had no fake phone calls, no sweet messages with hidden agendas. I bought myself something I had wanted for a long time. I went out to dinner with friends. I felt free, and my savings account started looking better than ever. Without those monthly payments leaving my account, I was finally able to make extra payments on my car and start saving for a down payment on a condo. It was not magic, it was just stopping the support for people who did not want to support themselves. At work, I got closer to my coworkers. I made new friends. I started dating Ryan, a guy from the IT department who was calm, smart, and most importantly, did not see me as a resource. Months later, I took a trip to Italy, something I had always wanted to do but never allowed myself because family comes first. This time I could because I was finally spending my money on myself. For the first time in my adult life, I was the priority. Near Christmas, Danielle called me again. Things are tense with your family, she said. Your parents are working so much that they are exhausted. And Chloe and Ethan broke up last week. What happened? I asked more out of curiosity than anything else. Ethan got fed up, Danielle said. He told her it was time for her to get serious, find a better job, or stop expecting someone else to support her. Chloe moved back into my parents' house. She was back to square one, except now my parents could not carry her like before because they could barely carry themselves. They have talked about reaching out to you, Danielle told me, given the holidays. I stayed quiet for a moment. And what do you think? She asked. I thought about the laughter in the kitchen, about my mom's sentence, about the plan with my name on it, as if I were an object. Maybe someday, I said finally, but not until they take responsibility, and not until they truly apologize to me. Not to save face, but because they mean it. Danielle sighed. I understand. We hung up. I sat in my living room with my apartment in silence. No yelling, no pressure, no fear of the next phone call. And it was then that I understood it with a clarity that brought me peace. I was fine. I was at peace. And for the first time in years, my life was mine. Comment. What I truly hope you take away from this story is the power of choosing yourself. Setting boundaries is one of the most difficult yet rewarding things we can do. It is not about lacking love for others, but rather about having a deep respect for your personal wellness. True kindness must always begin with being kind to yourself. Each of us is responsible for our own happiness and the life we build. Sometimes the most peaceful path is one you must walk alone for a while. Healing often starts with making the hard decision to protect your peace. It is never too late to redefine your relationships and claim your future. I hope you remember that your peace is a priority, and you are entirely worthy of it. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.